Hey guys, last time that we were talking about stuff, we were talking about what was happening after Caesar's death. And so far in our story after Caesar's death, we had the people who had assassinated Caesar. Each one of them was then in turn either assassinated on orders of Octavian and Mark Antony, or they committed suicide after losing in battle to Octavian and Mark Antony. And after the two of them had kind of finished off all the folks that were involved in Caesar's death, they then solidified an alliance between themselves by having Octavian's sister, Octavia, marry Mark Antony. So the two of them got married and that kind of solidified their alliance. There was a third person in the alliance. That person's name was Lepidus. And last time he tried to invade Sicily and take it away from Octavian, that did not go well. And Octavian was able to buy off all the troops of Lepidus. And then Agrippa, his buddy of Octavian, came down and destroyed Secus Pompey, last son of Pompey, and killed him. So that's what happened kind of last time in our story. Okay. So, next part of our story here. Oh, and then before I forget, in red, this is Octavian's territory. So, the Roman Empire, this is all part of the Roman Empire here. So, everything in purple and red is part of the Roman Empire. The area in red is controlled by Octavian. The area in purple is controlled by Mark Antony. They're still part of the same nation. They just control their own territories. The yellow down here is Egypt, which basically works for the Roman Empire. But Egypt down here is run by Cleopatra. And over here is the Parthian Empire. We'll talk a little bit about them today. So they're a different group altogether. All right, let's talk about Cleopatra though first. Go ahead and make a bullet if you would please, and let's just write down the name Cleopatra. So bullet Cleopatra. So what ends up happening is that Mark Antony he decides that he's gonna go on to fight over in Parthia. All right, so Mark Antony decided he's gonna go invade Parthia and go on this big invasion of them. All right, go ahead and make a one and write down Mark Antony. Oops. Mark Antony goes to fight in Anatolia. That's in Turkey, but he's going to go over the Parthia. So he arrives in Anatolia, and then he goes off to the Parthian Empire to fight against them. So Mark Antony goes to fight in Anatolia. That's number one. So Mark Antony, he's going to go fight against the Parthian Empire. Now, we talked about the Parthian Empire long, long time ago. In the first triumvirate, the first three-way alliance between Julius Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey, Crassus goes out to fight the Parthian Empire, and he's killed when he goes out there, leaving just Julius Caesar and Pompey, and then the relationship between those two breaks down after that. So Mark Antony, he comes over here to this territory. This is his territory. He gets an army gathered, and then he goes this way into the Parthian Empire. So he kind of invades in the Parthian Empire this way and fights against them. At first, things are going decently well because he does make a good stab into their territory. However, eventually things start to go bad for Mark Antony, and he's forced to pull back into Roman territory. So he kind of goes in, makes some progress, and then has to turn around and head back. So the invasion doesn't go great. It doesn't go bad either. It just kind of goes okay. And once he returns back to Turkey, Cleopatra, who was down in Egypt, goes up to Turkey and she visits with Mark Antony. So the two of them, they end up visiting. We're going to make a two. We're going to write down, while there he meets Cleopatra. There, we can just write down that part right there. So two, while there he meets Cleopatra. So Mark Antony, he's in Turkey. He ends up meeting Cleopatra when she arrives. So she shows up. She meets with Mark Antony. The two of them start talking. And after they start talking, Mark Antony falls in love with Cleopatra. And he decides to travel back to Egypt with her. Go ahead and make a number 3 and write down falls in love with her and travels back to Egypt. So the two of them fall in love and they travel back to Egypt and the two of them get married. Now, I realizes that he's already married to Octavia and has two kids with her, but apparently he didn't care about that, so he ends up marrying Cleopatra. Does he get a divorce from Octavia? No. He just kind of marries Cleopatra as well. And when the two of them get married, they end up having kids. So they end up having three kids together. So if you've been keeping track, Mark Antony now has five children. Cleopatra has four. And let's see here. I wrote this kind of down before, so let's hear it. Mark Antony, 8 children in total. He doesn't have any children with his first wife, one with his second wife, two with his third wife, two with Octavia, and then he has three children with Cleopatra. Cleopatra had one kid with Caesar, who was Caesarion. She has three with Mark Antony. The three kids that Mark Antony and Cleopatra have with each other, their names are Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selina II, and Ptolemy Philodatus. So those are their kids' names. Okay, make a 4. And for 4, we're going to write down scandalous behavior and an insult to Octavia and Octavian. So, because Mark Antony cheats on Octavian's sister, Octavia, Octavian's not very happy with Mark Antony. But not being unhappy with him isn't enough to really cause a war. However, there is something that's going to happen that's going to cause the relationship to break down even further. So what ends up happening is that Octavian, he's able to obtain a copy of Mark Antony's will. So we talked about a will before. A will basically says, hey, my stuff that I own, all my money, all my possessions, they go to this person. So Mark Antony's will is supposed to have written down that everything that he owns, his land, his money, are all supposed to go to his children that he had with Octavia. However, his will doesn't say that. Instead, in his will, it says that all his money and land goes to the children that he had with Cleopatra. And that's enough to then declare war over. Or that's enough, I guess, to break down the situation into a situation where they declare war. Make a 5 and write down Will left land to his children with Cleopatra. So number 5, Will left land to his children with Cleopatra. So this ticks off Octavian because that's against what the two of them had agreed to. They had agreed that the land and money that he had would go to his children that he had with Octavia, not the children that he had with Cleopatra. Therefore, Octavian then declares war on Mark Antony, and then we have war between the two of them. And I'll explain that next. But go ahead and make a 6 and write down Octavian declared war on Antony. So Octavian declared war on Antony. So Octavian declares then war on Antony, and we'll talk about how that kind of goes. Now, Cleopatra for herself, she kind of believed that Octavian was not the rightful heir of the Roman Empire of Julius Caesar, because remember, she has a son with Julius Caesar named Caesarion, and she believes that Caesarion was the rightful heir to the throne of Rome. I guess there's no really Roman throne, but that he was the rightful person that should be in charge. This is a statue of Caesarion right there. And in the war, what ends up happening is that Mark Antony takes his army, moves it up here into Greece, and he has his army marching by land, and he has a whole bunch of boats that are traveling of right next to his army that's marching over land. You might be wondering, well, why didn't he have his army on his boats? Apparently, that would have been too much weight to have his army on the boats that he had, so he just didn't have enough boats to transport the entire army. So he was going to have his army march by land this way, and then his boats were carrying all the food and supplies for them, and they were just going to travel like right next to his army while they were kind of marching this way. So the goal was kind of march by land and eventually head over to Rome. So he has all his troops, his boats, and supplies over here in Greece at a place called Actium. And Actium's like it's a gulf or a bay. I should really say it's a bay. But it's kind of like a gulf. It's a bay. So there's one way in, there's an inlet, and then it opens up, and there's no other way out, just that one inlet. A gripper, we talked about a gripper before, that's Octavian's admiral who defeated Secus Pompey and killed him. A gripper figures out where Mark Antony is, and he brings the entire fleet of Octavians to that bay and cuts off that one inlet. So the only way in and out of that inlet, a gripper got there and he cuts it off. So Mark Antony has a choice. He can either leave back all of his boats and his food supplies and all that and march by land and try to find food that way, or he can try to have his fleet break the fleet of a gripper and break out that way. And Mark Antony decides to break out instead of marching by land. So he's going to try to break the blockade that currently has the bay encircled. Blockade when you don't allow anybody in or out with your boats. So you got your boats and you make a blockade, which basically means you don't let anybody in or out of a certain area.